Hello, everyone. Today I'm looking at Legacy of Kain, Soul Reaver. I really like this game, and doing that little voice intro. I mean, there's a lot of things to say about this game, but like right off the bat, the voice acting and the writing and the dialogue are phenomenal. They are personally, I think, maybe some of my favorite dialogue ever. And I think that's something that a lot of people say about this game. It has, not exactly old timey, but it has that old classical, like that epic kind of vibe to its dialogue and its setting. It's all about the seraphim and demons and, old angels and things like this. And so this is my first game in the Kain series. As I understand, there's a multiplicity of different games and different titles originating on the PS1 and PC, I believe. And this is just one of them. And the entire impression, I'm not sure when this idea started, but Kain essentially is kind of based on the biblical character, but is this ancient vampire from this ancient vampiric race. And in Soul Reaver, you actually play as Raziel, one of his creations slash I think the term is thrall. One of his people that he turned. And so it's a pretty very clean upfront intro where basically Raziel, he and the other vampire brood that serve Kain he ends up evolving faster than the rest of them, including Kain himself, and he grows these wings or something. And so there's some weird evolution thing that apparently that he violated, and of course Kain gets jealous and throws him into a pit of agonizing spiritual matter, just like the real Kain of the Bible. So he got jealous and basically, cast him into the pit. And that's where we kind of begin our game, where between that event unfolding and where we are now, centuries have passed, and Raziel has kind of lost his powers through evolution because he was sent into this spectral realm, this giant pit of spirit energy, and it has weakened and destroyed him. And so his wings now only, they're still there, but they're kind of like these rags, and they only let him hover. They also have this cool thing where Raziel, he's kind of, he's blue now, he's kind of decrepit, he's kind of been, defeated and whatever, and he's kind of looking more scruffy and scrappy. But that kind of fits a very cool tone for the game itself, because it has a much more cooler, aquiline, non-human design. He's still humanoid, but there's still a lot of things going on in his design that are interesting. I mean, another thing too that I should mention is that the designs of this game are really, really good in terms of art direction. Raziel and his look, as well as the enemies, the other demons you fight, the vampiric brothers. And so when you start off the game, you essentially are found slash resurrected by, I don't actually remember, some other entity that I only know is voiced by Tony J. And that's kind of like one of the main reasons I was actually really looking forward to playing this game, because Tony J is my favorite voice actor of all time. I think his other notable roles are Megabyte from the Reboot TV show and Count Frollo from The Hunchback of Notre Dame. He was also the main villain in Planescape, and so I realized this is probably the last major thing that I wanted to see him from. And apparently he also voiced one of the vampiric brothers, I think Zephon, in this game. But yeah, no, just when you hear Tony J's voice, it is my favorite voice of all time. And unfortunately, he's no longer with us. But yeah, no, that's why I was super excited to play this game. And so basically this entity, and I again forget the name of it, he resurrects Raziel, and he says, oh, now you have to go after Kain, I'm going to help you, I'm your guide, etc., etc. And this is the main kind of, I wouldn't say the main way you save your game is just you save your game, but whenever you do save your game, you end up starting or resurrecting at the very beginning of the game where you start off. So it's kind of like he's your home base point. And what's a very smart thing is that there's a little pedestal that you can go to talk to him, and he'll give you usually a repeat of a voiceover that he did that tells you essentially where to go next in the game. And so that's a very useful way to just, remember, oh, if you haven't played it for a while, where am I going? That kind of thing. So you start off the game, and he basically says, look, Kain has been, since the centuries you've been asleep or away, Kain has become more consolidated with his power, and the other, vampiric brothers you had were essentially betrayed, or part of his, even though they were his servants, they've all kind of met mutated weird fates, and so they've all contorted, and so instead of evolving like they were supposed to, they ended up devolving, and each one has a different kind of theme. Like you go to the water level, and I think it's Rahab, who has become a fish demon / vampire thing, and that's just like a typical kind of boss you'll encounter. Each one of the bosses is very unique and iconic. They all have a certain they have great voice lines, a certain mechanic, and a certain design to them that all look really cool. I think my favorite one was Zephon, who's just this, I think it was Zephon, he's just this giant like flesh thing that's embedded in the wall. And so most of the game you kind of go through area to area. You get to the end of the area, you fight that brother, that boss, you get a bit more of the lore and the story background, and you go on to the next one. And the game is divided into the very basic exploration, combat, puzzle, repeat. So nothing super amazing, nothing super impressive. Even the combat itself is pretty, I would say, clunky, especially on the original PS1, where the major issue, you just have frame rate drop issues that are just really brutal sometimes, where you're going so slowly and you're trying to react to the enemy, and if you're in a big wide open area, like the frame rates will fluctuate by at least 15 frames. It feels, you'll go from 10 to 30 quite often. So on the original hardware, so that's how it is. What is really interesting though about the combat and the mechanics though is that I think the game is very forgiving in the sense that if you run out of life, you get sent to the spectral world, and so that's how you die. And then in the spectral world, essentially you have to defeat these little ghosts or find these orbs of energy to regain full health, and there's certain portals that allow you to enter into the normal world again. So if you're in the middle of a boss battle, you actually don't get sent back unless you also die in the spirit realm, but these little ghost creatures are so weak, it's really almost impossible / embarrassing if you ever do die to them. In which case, if you do, you get sent back to the very beginning of the game. And it's also a weird save system where, yeah, you can save, but again, you're going to go back to the very beginning of the game as well, and you're not going to spawn in that same area again. And that's why the only real kind of progress you make are finding warp rooms. So you'll find a room that will essentially have a sigil on it, and it's a very cool kind of mechanic where right outside the very start area where you spawn in, there is a warp room, and you basically go in front of this giant mirror thing, and you can cycle through the different symbols on the wall for each different warp room. And so if you remember which one you were at or your progress, you just go to that one. And it's really not a perfect system because they're very abstract symbols, and unless you're just playing the game consistently, like if I came back to the game after a week and I had to remember the exact symbol where I had to go for what I was doing and where I was going, I would just have to cycle through all of them until I get to the snow level or the water level, because I literally would not remember. But yeah. Um, and so that's basically, I would basically just save as soon as I got a new warp room, because it's like, okay, cool, I know I can just warp exactly back here and my progress will be saved, rather than going a little bit more and going 3 rooms in and realizing, oh, I have to go do something and save and quit the game. It might still save all the puzzle progress you made, obviously, but at the same token, you're not going to be in that exact same room again. So you're going to probably have to fight enemies again. The way combat works is, again, pretty novel and interesting. So, of course, you're mashing X to attack, or sorry, square in this case. And essentially the enemies get wounded, but because they're vampires, they can't actually die. So you have to do the classic style thing where you have to stab them or burn them alive or lead them into sunlight, which is a pretty, honestly, easy tactic. And so there's a few ways to do that, which are really cool. So you'll mash the square button, and Raziel has his little claws or whatever. And later, when you get an upgrade where you get, I was gonna call it an energy blade, but you get the Soul Reaver, and this is so cool. It's so simple and so cool. Where basically he gets his blade of energy and of light, where if you swing it, you basically, have a way higher reach than if you were just using your fists. The caveat, though, is that you only have this at full health. So as soon as you get hit, you're at a disadvantage. So it's a really cool system where it encourages you to try to stay at full health, encourages you to get the first landing hit on an enemy, and then once they're damaged, the way you usually take them out is by using triangle. And so if you hold down triangle when they're wounded and stunned, you basically have to lift them up and throw them into a spike or into like a fire pit, and that'll kill them. And that was honestly the most frustrating part of the game, because for some reason when Raziel is carrying these guys, his turn sensitivity feels like X2 or X3. Like, it's very, very difficult to line it up, and if you hold them for too long, they wake up and jump out of your hands and start attacking you again. So it's definitely not easy. It's a little bit frustrating for sure. What's really cool, though, is that once you get the Soul Reaver, I think after beating the first boss or so, Raziel, if you're still at full health after you've stunned them, he can do this energy attack which just obliterates them, and it feels so good. It's also interesting that, again, in the environment, like environmental damage, I haven't seen this since, Mad World. It's a very rare mechanic that you don't see a lot in games, honestly, when you can, push the enemy into the environment to have it harm them. And for, this game, it's almost required until you get certain weapons. An alternate method that I found really cool is that you can also pick up a bunch of weapons in the environment itself. So there are spears on the walls, staff, metal pipes, and what's really cool is that they also have the same long reach. And when you stun an enemy and you want to press the triangle button, you actually impale them and lift them up as a kill thing. And it's so cool. It's basically like a glory kill, Doom style, but it feels and looks really, really cool. And you have iframes when you do it, which is also super helpful. Again, you don't really fight a lot of enemies at once. At most, I think 3 I ever fought at once. It's very uncommon. The designs of the enemies are pretty cool. They're very like these demonic, imp-ish kind of creatures. I think they all look pretty scary and intimidating. And later on, you're fighting these little Baphomets that are throwing energy things at you. And then you see the demons kind of adapting to the environment. So there's aquatic demons. There's demons that can, not demons that can fly, but there's wraiths basically in the spirit world. And and so even though the combat itself is very kind of frustrating and clunky up front, you get a lot of tools that actually make it very manageable. I think after the Rahab fight, it's before that. Eventually you get an energy blast effect where you have basically a ranged attack. And once you have that, pretty much every fight is super easy unless the enemy gets the jump on you. Because you can just blast them, and then they're stunned, and then you just go up to them and kill them. It's super super easy. Um, the other thing is that I forgot the whole thing about the game is for the circle button is that is your absorb button, and so that's how you gain health. That's how you gain spirit energy and other things. And so sometimes when you kill an enemy, again because they're vampiric, even after you've impaled them, if you don't absorb their soul energy and you remove that weapon that you used to impale them, they end up getting back up and keep attacking you. So you have to, kind of be careful and be sure. And of course, the thing is, when you do the inhale thing, Raziel does this really cool thing with his design where his wings are tattered, but he turns them into almost like a scarf thing around them. I'm not sure if the scarf is like from somewhere else, but essentially what he does is he opens up his scarf and he's missing, like he's covering his face, and he's basically missing his lower jaw because of his corruption. And so as he does this, it opens up this giant void underneath where his mouth should be, and that's how he absorbs the souls. It's really, really cool. So I don't know, I think it's really cool that we have this vampiric theme on it, but instead of drinking blood or flesh, you're literally eating souls, which is just way cooler. And you have a energy beam made out of souls. It's just so freaking cool. Like they really, it's so, I don't know, it's the 90s. It's a really cool, very simple premise, but I really love it. I guess in the spirit world, you have these little, again, ghost creatures that aren't super difficult to deal with, and the only caveat is that you need to defeat them to get full spirit health so that you can use the portals to even come back. Also throughout the game, there are different kinds of magical elements that you can get and accrue that add to your arsenal. And so I was kind of thinking at the beginning of the game, oh no, I'm going to have to, I go to the spirit world, that's one power, and then there's like 9 slots. Well, they're not all 9 different worlds, they're 9 different powers. So, for example, one of them is this giant fire energy blast that goes all around Raziel and kills everything instantly in a giant fiery ball of death. And I just called it the Din's Fire Attack because that's literally what it was. Yeah, so there's that one of 9. I actually didn't get many of them because they're kind of hard to find. I kind of want to go back and find the rest of those power-ups, but they're all very cool. And I guess this is kind of going on another tangent, but just from Raziel's, I think I should make like a little, like a documentary or like a little checkbook or something, because just from Raziel's design, his unique moves, his movement, the way he enters into an environment, the different styles and emphasis of attacks and how he upgrades, it feels like he would be a perfect fit for Smash Brothers. And I haven't gotten that vibe from a character in a long time. It's like, okay, this character is John McNormalson and he has a grappling hook, but aside from that, there's nothing interesting about him. It's like, I have a million Nathan Drake-esque characters, but for some reason Raziel, again, from his design, from his special unique powers, from the way that he is, from the way he fights, the way he upgrades, like I know what his final smash is, I know what his intro is, I know what his light attack, his big attack, like it just, I don't know, I haven't had that kind of connection to a character and feeling their he even has a logo, a symbol, he could have a stage. There's something about this very simple game, and the game is very, very simple. Like it's very rudimentary in its design in terms of like the actual level design. It harkens back to like this is very early 3D. So the environments themselves, they're all brown and gray walls. It's a very, frankly, kind of ugly looking game in most sections. That's when you get to a water section or a snow section. It's like, oh, this is kind of cool. But it does harken back to this principle or this idea that everything in the environment is useful. If you can see it, you can interact with it. And at a certain point, games, because they had more power, they were able to generate a lot of stuff in the environment that made it look real, but none of it acted real. I mean, sure, you can add a bunch of, Dark Souls crates and barrels that you can roll into and destroy, and they do something. But a lot of games just add a lot of set dressing that don't actually do anything. And it was kind of refreshing to see a game where literally everything you can interact with. Again, I go back to Luigi's Mansion 3 in terms of my golden standard for design and interactability, wherein everything in a room, and it's a small room, everything in that room you can interact with. It has a little secret, little thing, little coin in it or something. And here it's like, if you can see it, you can either grab it and pick it up and use it, or it's something that you can use to kill an enemy and throw them onto, or it's something you can latch onto and upgrade. And yeah, I mean, the world of Soul Reaver, I mean, it is super, super rough in the sense that like it even has like draw distance, the Silent Hill draw distance fog, where if you're looking, I'm gonna say 10 meters roughly in front of you, it's just a wall of fog. It doesn't matter what environment you're in, that's just going to be always the case. And and I find that a little bit funny, but I find it very kind of atmospheric because you can't really see, again, what's in front of you. And even then, it's a very, very dark game. Like, you just can't see a lot. In fact, there are some parts in the game where I had to go to the spirit world just because it had a green, like, Matrix style tint to it, so that I could actually see what the heck is even, what am I jumping on, or is that a wall, or is that like a portal, is that a cave, or is that just a black texture? I literally could not tell unless I turned on the spirit mode. Aside from that, every time Raziel kills a boss, he gets a new power. I got one that was really unexpected, which was swimming, because they established from the beginning of the game that if you go into water, it basically burns you, and you can throw other vampires into waters and it'll kill them. But for Raziel, it'll basically take off like a chunk of his health and send him straight to the spirit world. And then you can just actually, it says like water has no weight, so in the spirit world. So when you go to the spirit world, you can just walk through the underwater sections, which is, again, a really nifty, interesting concept. And so I thought, okay, they just couldn't program swimming, so they just, that's the workaround. Like in Assassin's Creed 1, I mean, that's like friggin' 2007, almost a decade later. As soon as Altair hits water, there's like, oh yeah, because of the simulation, he can't swim. So I just thought it was a gameplay excuse. But you defeat Rahab the water boss, and you unlock swimming ability. I'm like, oh, okay, that's cool. It was actually a pleasant surprise to see that they actually could work it into the game. Again, on the auditory side, aside from the brilliant voice acting, I think the sound effects are pretty decent. The music in this game is, well, it's not amazing. I'll say that. It's fine. I mean, I think there's one beat where you get to the fortress level, and it has this almost like this synth beat that sounds like a revenge beat from some 80s action movie. That feels really cool because you literally are getting revenge on your master, and I think that's a really cool theme to go for. What is very interesting, I'll add though, about the music in this game is not necessarily the quality of the music itself, but its usage in a dynamic way. I think the term is either adaptive or dynamic music. I think adaptive music is more accurate. Dynamic could mean a whole slew of different things, how the music changes. But adaptive music, and it's one of my favorite things to see in games. Another example of this is something like Banjo-Kazooie, how when you're going underwater, despite every single level, area, whatever, you will have an underwater theme. I remember there being this one like a special hint room where like it's like one room and it has its own theme, and there's a pool of water, and it's partially underwater, and so the guy, I think David Wise, he made a separate underwater theme for this one room. Like everything got an underwater theme. So it's not exactly quite that in Legacy of Kain, but in the OST, what you'll find is there's, the normal theme of the area. Then you have suspense, as if there's enemies nearby. Then you have danger, as in the enemy is attacking you. And then you have a combat theme where you're fully engaged with the enemy. And then you also have a puzzle theme, which I thought was really cool. And then you also have the spectral variations. So you have spectral, danger, suspicion, combat, and puzzle as well. So and they're all pretty much just slight variations, but I did appreciate how, when I locked onto the enemy and I started fighting, the game picked up its percussion, or a new instrument was introduced, or it became more intense in the bass. I really, really enjoy that stuff, and I feel it really adds to the experience. I think, Banjo-Kazooie does that. Drakengard 3 does that when you go into blood mode. Quite a few games randomly here and there do this thing, and I just have to highlight it, because when I do see it, I really do appreciate it. I think it adds a lot. But for most of the OST is kind of very generic-ish music otherwise. I guess in Soul Reaver there are also a combination of puzzles, and most of them are just, block puzzles or mirror puzzles. I really like the light mirror puzzles. Another main reason why you go to the spiritual realm that fits into the puzzle mechanics, which I like and don't like at the same time, is that when you enter the spirit realm, I think the first mechanic you unlock is that Raziel can go through bars or very thin walls while he's in the spirit world if he just goes against it. So sometimes you will need to just enter the spirit world just in order to progress normally, which will be very common. The other thing, though, is that I don't like is that sometimes because when you're in the real world and you'll be going along the path and you'll have this room and there's a ledge and you're just like, okay, is there a switch? Is there something? Like, you just think of everything and there's nothing you can think of. And so basically, most of the time when you're stuck in this game, what solves 90% of problems is that you just enter the spirit realm. And when you do that, the environment changes. And I like that, I guess. I just wish there was a way to more so telegraph that. For example, I think it would be good if, like, for example, like, I know certain platforms that would move, that if you went into spirit form had like a green tint to them or something, or they had a sign of wear and tear. I mean, there are some things that are obvious. If a pillar is fallen over, and like you think, if I go to the spirit realm, I'm going back in the past or something, and then it goes, upright, and like, okay, that makes sense. But then there are times when you have a bunch of normal pillars and you go to the spirit realm and they all, get taller or something, or there's this crevasse that opens up and you're like, okay, how would I know that unless it's very obviously telegraphed to you? And sometimes it's just not telegraphed very well, and it's only when I went to the spirit realm I was like, oh, right, of course. But that's neither here nor there. I guess the other thing I should talk on very briefly is the ending to this game, which is just kind of shocking, to be frank with you. So, there's a certain number of teleportation rooms, and I thought, okay, I'm kind of getting near the end here, but I still don't have a lot of powers, and I feel like there's a lot of stuff I still need to do, and, I just wasn't really sure, and so I kind of thought maybe I have to do a bunch of backtracking with all the powers that I have, since I hadn't done that yet. And basically, after you go to the snow area, the Tony J voice, for lack of a better word, basically tells Raziel, oh, your master is in this area. And I thought, what, you mean Kain, or you mean my real master? Because in my mind he said, oh, in the snowy waste there is still a mystery to be revealed, and the last mystery is on Raziel's true identity. So I thought, oh, this is going to be my real master or something. It's going to be like, Kain isn't my real master, I'm going to find out who really made me. And you get there and you're like, oh no, it is Kain. And I'm like, oh, okay, there's no mystery here. But you're going through the final section of the game, and you're going through these series of corridors, and I actually really love this design where it's like this portal, and it shows a bunch of stars and space, but it's made out of like a liquid. And so when Raziel looks into this portal and walks into it, he gets a vision of the past or the present or the future. And so it's like a time dilation mirror in a way, which I think is super cool. And in that, he basically sees a bunch of things that have happened and a bunch of things that are going to happen. So it shows like him killing a major NPC and be like, oh, of course, right, this is going to be, you have to kill me to get this special power or something. It shows him, I think killing Kain. It shows him basically having this ultimate power form, whatever. And I thought, oh, okay, I'm at the half point of the game or something. And right after that room, you find Kain, and you have a very, kind of mid-boss fight with him, to be honest. It's literally just guessing where he spawns in, jumping on that ledge, and then hitting him 3 times. And that's literally it. I thought that would be like phase 1. No, it's... So... My gripe is that after all that stuff, after all this prophecy, and even Kain is like, you have seen things that have yet to occur, Raziel. There is still yet more to come before you defeat me. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. And he's like, and then what's his face is like, oh, be warned, Raziel. If you go past this barrier, you're outside of my protection. I cannot defend you. I thought, okay, once I go through the barrier, that'll be the final endpoint. But then in the cutscene, Raziel goes through the barrier. I don't even have a choice to go back and like get my stats up and get all my, all the special extra skills. And so Raziel just goes through the barrier and he meets the god of time, Mobius or whatever, and he gives him like an overtone or a voiceover thing. And then it cuts to like a paragraph of text and Mobius reads it. And then it says to be continued. Like, what? I was so taken aback. I just thought, wait, what? I've seen games with cliffhangers before. I mean, I'm thinking of Halo 2, where it's like finish the fight kind of thing. But you did wrap up the main villa. You did defeat Tartarus. You did, go through all the things, and it was like you finished that chapter of the game, and you finished up that fight. And it's time for the final fight, but I've never been so cliff hung by a game, like to literally just say to be continued in such a like TV episodic way. I was really taken aback. I was really shaken up by that because I had never seen it done so blatantly before and so anticlimactically. It's not even like we defeated Kain, but he's going to resurrect. No, he just got away. Like he just went through a portal, like it, and it showed all this other stuff in the same game engine, all these other upgrades and powers that we were gonna do, and I just thought, okay, cool. I guess you can't put it all in development, but I want to do that stuff. I want to defeat Kain. I want to have the final thing. It felt like a half game to me almost, and I was just like, so I haven't even done research at this point. I know there's a second game. I think it's on the PS2, but I just. Yeah, I was just completely taken aback by how it handled that scenario. It was just like, yeah, okay, see ya. We're out of time. So, yeah, so the ending to this game is definitely very anticlimactic. I mean, I did really enjoy it for what it was, but I mean, in terms of the history or the future of these games, I know there's one on PS2. I'm not sure if there's another one, but what actually really got me into the Legacy of Kain series, or I don't know when you say got me into it, but I remember years ago, I don't know if it was 2010 or 2012, it was at E3 and they showed a Legacy of Kain like reboot, or they were doing like a sequel on next gen systems like 360 and PS3, and I had no idea, no context. I just had, was watching all the games coming out. And I just remember being really transfixed by this E3 demo, which of course is for a game that was canceled and never came out. And now I feel like I want to go back and revisit that demo and just research it a little bit, because I don't know why, but just the tone of the characters and of the zone, I felt it was so interesting that there was this unseen spirit world that you had to shift into in order to do a bunch of puzzles and stuff, and also do combat, and it has vampires, and it's kind of like dark fantasy. Out of all the things I've taken out of Soul Reaver, I think this spirit world mechanic is really just super interesting to me, and I don't really know why. It's essentially the idea that there are unseen things, demons, ghosts, souls, and spirits that we just can't see, and there's a mechanic that really highlights that. I just think it's just, I don't know, it's really cool. And yeah, anyway, I something I want to go back and kind of revisit. And I guess this game is not getting any revival anytime soon, but I would love to see a game like that or some sort of revival of this series. I think it would be really, really cool. But yeah, I can't really think of much else to say. I mean, there are very few there are collectibles in this game. There's like one where you get 5 pieces of this. It looks like a cheese wheel, frankly, and it upgrades your health. But it's a very bare bones game. It's very much on the same level of something like Tomb Raider. Like they just barely have a world. They barely have an environment that you can platform and have combat in and move through. And there's very sparse things to collect and find and discover, but they are there. And yeah, overall, it was a really cool experience. I understand how a lot of people look at this and they say, "Oh, it doesn't look very fun." And believe me, it's not super fun to play. But once you get into the rhythm and the progress and going through the story, really, it's the story, the characters, the voice acting that are just, I know, really. Really distinct and really profound, and still something that really I think holds up even to today in terms of standards of voice acting. They're just really, really nice. Even I remember the fish boss even had like a filter on his voice to make him all aquatic and underwater sounding slightly. So audio design of this game is definitely a huge component, and audio design in games goes a lot longer of a way than just simple visuals. So. But anyway, yeah, there's that dark fantasy game that's never getting a series revive. But no, again, top tier writing, absolutely love it. Was a great experience, if not a little bit weirdly short. Yeah, that's pretty much for this one, and I'll see you guys later. Bye.